My family stole my identity for loans. They didn't know I had the receipts. I was staring at the rejection letter from my apartment complex when my mom walked into the kitchen, humming like she didn't have a care in the world. Credit score of 487. I said, waving the paper. Mom, how is my credit score 487? I've never even had a credit card. She barely glanced up from loading the dishwasher. Oh honey, those things are always wrong. Probably mixed you up with someone else who has the same name. But I knew she was lying. I'd known for 2 years. The first red flag came when I was 20, home from college for winter break. A credit card statement addressed to me fell out of a stack of mail my dad was carrying. When I asked about it, he said it was junk mail and threw it away so fast you'd think it was on fire. But not before I caught a glimpse of a $8,947 balance on a Chase Freedom card I'd never applied for. That's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I began intercepting the mail before anyone else could get to it. Started finding statements for credit cards, personal loans, even a car loan for a 2019 Honda Civic that was apparently sitting in our driveway under my name. The same Honda Civic my older brother Jake claimed he'd saved up for from his part-time job at GameStop. The amounts were staggering. A Capital One card with $12,430. A Discover card maxed out at $15,000. 3 different personal loans totaling $31,200. All in my name. All with signatures that looked almost like mine, but not quite. Jake had always been good at forgery. I remembered him copying my handwriting to sign permission slips when we were kids. For 2 years, I documented everything. I photocopied every statement before hiding them back where I found them. I recorded conversations on my phone, like the one where my sister Emma told her boyfriend she'd figured out how to get another $5,000 and mentioned something about my social security number. I even started keeping a detailed log with dates and times. December 15, 2023, 3:47 p.m. Overheard dad on phone with someone saying, yeah, we can use Emma's information this time, but her brother's credit line isn't maxed yet. January 8, 2024, 11:22 a.m. Found Citibank statement in kitchen trash. Balance, $9,847. Minimum payment overdue by 60 days. February 3, 2024, 6:15 p.m. Mom asked me to verify my social security number for insurance purposes. Gave her a fake number. She seemed annoyed. The folder hidden under my mattress grew thicker every month. Photos of forged signatures. Screenshots of credit reports I'd pulled in secret. Voice recordings. Bank statements. Even a picture of the Honda's registration that I snapped when Jake left it on the kitchen counter. They had no idea I knew. They treated me like their personal ATM, and they thought I was too naive to notice. But now, holding this apartment rejection letter, everything was coming to a head. I was supposed to graduate in 3 months. I had a job lined up in Portland. I was supposed to start my actual life, and instead I was trapped by debts I never created, destroyed by people who were supposed to love me. My phone buzzed with a text from my girlfriend Sarah. Did you get the apartment? I looked at my mom, still humming, still acting innocent. The folder upstairs contained enough evidence to send my entire family to prison for identity theft and fraud. Time to decide if I was going to use it. I couldn't bring myself to text Sarah back. Instead, I went upstairs and pulled out the folder, spreading everything across my bed like some twisted detective board. 2 years of evidence stared back at me, dozens of statements, photos, recordings. Enough to bury them all. My laptop chimed with an email notification. Another rejection, this time from the credit union where I'd applied for a small personal loan to cover my security deposit. Due to your current debt-to-income ratio and recent delinquencies. Recent delinquencies. I pulled up my credit report on my phone and felt my stomach drop. 3 new accounts had been opened in the past month alone. A Best Buy card with a $2,847 balance. A Wells Fargo personal loan for $8,500. And something called a Payday Express loan for $1,200 at what looked like a 400% interest rate. They weren't slowing down. They were accelerating. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly shoved everything back under my mattress. Emma knocked and poked her head in without waiting for an answer. Hey, can I borrow your ID real quick? I left mine at work and need to return something at Target. My blood went cold. What do you need to return that requires an ID? Just some electronic stuff. I'll give it right back, promise. She was already reaching out her hand expectantly. 2 years ago, I might have handed it over without thinking. Now I could see exactly what she was planning. Another store credit card application, maybe. Or worse. Sorry, I need it. I'm heading out soon. Her face darkened for just a moment before the fake smile returned. Oh, okay. No worries. After she left, I sat on my bed trying to process what just happened. They were getting bold. Desperate, maybe. The payday loan especially worried me. Those were what people used when they couldn't get credit anywhere else. Were they maxing out all the regular cards under my name? I pulled out my phone and called the number for Payday Express, disguising my voice slightly. Hi, I'm calling about a recent loan under the name. I gave them my full name and social security number. Yes sir, I see that loan here. $1,200 disbursed on March 8th, due in full on March 22nd. That's $1,680 with fees. Will you be paying electronically or? March 22nd. That was next Friday. What happens if it's not paid? Well sir, after the grace period we'd be looking at additional fees, and it does get reported to collections pretty quickly. Is there going to be a problem with payment? I hung up. $1,680 due in 6 days, and I guarantee my family had no idea. They probably thought they'd figure it out later, like they always did. Except this time, collections calls would be coming to my phone, my email, potentially my dorm room. That evening at dinner, I watched them all carefully. Dad talking about wanting to upgrade his golf clubs. Emma showing off a new designer purse. Jake mentioning he might trade in his Honda for something newer. Mom planning a weekend trip to wine country with her sisters. They were spending money they didn't have, money borrowed against my future, and acting like nothing was wrong. So Marcus, Mom said, cutting into her steak, have you given any more thought to maybe staying local after graduation? There are some nice apartments right here in town. Much more affordable than Portland. I nearly choked on my water. Of course they wanted me to stay local. Easier to keep using me as their personal credit line. Actually, I said, I've been thinking I might need to make some big changes soon. The way they all looked at me, just for a split second, told me everything I needed to know. They knew that I knew. The silence stretched for about 10 seconds too long. Dad cleared his throat and went back to cutting his steak, but I caught the look he exchanged with Jake. Mom's smile faltered before snapping back into place like a rubber band. What kind of changes, sweetie? Her voice had that forced casual tone she used when she was fishing for information. Oh, you know. Adult stuff. Financial planning. Credit monitoring. That sort of thing. Emma actually flinched. I excused myself early and went upstairs, but instead of going to my room, I hid at the top of the stairs to listen. It took about 3 minutes. Think he knows? That was Jake, voice low and worried. He can't know. He would have said something by now. Mom, but she didn't sound convinced. What about that thing with the apartment? He seemed pretty upset about his credit score. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Lots of young people have credit issues. Student loans, that kind of thing. Dad, trying to sound authoritative. He's probably just stressed about graduating. We need to be more careful, Mom said. Maybe slow down for a while. Slow down. Jake's voice pitched higher. Mom, the Honda payment is due next week, and the Discover card minimum is $340. Plus that payday thing Emma did. That's enough. Dad's voice cut through the whispers. We'll figure it out. We always do. I crept back to my room and immediately started a new voice memo on my phone. March 12, 8:43 p.m., family discussion confirming knowledge of fraudulent accounts. Jake mentioned Honda payment, Discover minimum of $340, and payday thing Emma did. My hands were shaking as I typed. They knew I was suspicious, but they were going to keep going anyway. The payday loan was Emma's doing specifically, and they had no plan for paying it back. I opened my laptop and logged into my credit monitoring account. 3 more hard inquiries had shown up in the past 48 hours. Synchrony Bank, Credit One, and something called Avant Personal Loans. They weren't slowing down, they were panicking and applying everywhere they could think of. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is a reminder that your payment of $1,680 is due to Payday Express in 4 days. Reply stop to opt out. 4 days. I screenshotted it and added it to the folder on my phone I'd started keeping as backup to my physical evidence. Then I had a terrible thought. I pulled up my bank account, my actual bank account that I'd opened at a credit union near campus using my dorm address. The balance showed $347.23, same as this morning. But just to be safe, I called the after-hours customer service line. I just want to verify that I'm the only person authorized on this account, I told the representative. Let me check that for you. Yes sir, just you. No joint holders, no authorized users. And there haven't been any attempts to add anyone. Or any inquiries about adding someone. A pause. Well, there was a call yesterday from someone claiming to be your mother. She said there was a family emergency and she needed to make a deposit on your behalf. But she couldn't verify the security questions, so we didn't provide any information. My blood turned to ice water. What security questions did she get wrong? She couldn't provide your mother's maiden name or the name of your first pet. Thank God I'd lied about both of those when I set up the account. I'd used my girlfriend Sarah's mother's maiden name and the name of my roommate's childhood dog instead of the real answers. They were coming from my actual money now. Not just my credit, my cash. I hung up and immediately changed all my banking passwords, then enabled every security feature I could find. 2-factor authentication, verbal passwords, account alerts for any activity over $5. As I was finishing up, I heard Jake's Honda start in the driveway. At 10:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. I looked out my window and watched Emma get in the passenger seat. Going somewhere together, at night, right after that family meeting about needing to be more careful. I grabbed my keys and followed them. I kept my distance as Jake's Honda wound through suburban streets toward the commercial district. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the radio. At 10:47 p.m., they pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour check cashing place called Quick Cash Express. I parked across the street behind a Taco Bell and watched through my windshield as they sat in the car for several minutes, clearly arguing about something. Emma kept gesturing wildly while Jake shook his head. Finally, she got out and walked into the building alone. My phone was already recording when Jake called someone. Yeah, it's me. She's doing it now. I know, but what choice do we have? The payday loan thing is due Friday, and if we don't. No, Mom, he definitely suspects something. You should have seen his face at dinner. Well, what did you expect? We've been at this for 4 years, eventually. 4 years. I'd only discovered evidence going back 2 years, but they've been using my identity since I was 18. Since the moment I became an adult. Look, Emma thinks she can get maybe $2,000 from this place, and then we just need to hold off until Marcus graduates and moves away. Once he's in Portland, it'll be harder for him to keep track of. What do you mean, if? He got the job, he's moving. Fine, but if he doesn't leave, we're screwed anyway. Emma came out 23 minutes later, and from her body language, things hadn't gone well. She was empty-handed and looked furious. They sat in the parking lot for another 10 minutes, more arguing, before driving to a second location. This one was called Easy Money Loans, tucked between a liquor store and a nail salon. Same routine, Emma went in alone while Jake stayed on the phone. This time I could hear him getting more agitated. She got declined. I don't know why, they said something about too many recent applications. Mom, we're running out of options here. His credit is basically maxed and now these places are starting to talk to each other. A horrible realization hit me. They weren't just destroying my credit, they were burning through every possible avenue so quickly that they were getting flagged by the system. The sudden spike in applications was making lenders suspicious. Emma emerged from Easy Money after 15 minutes, also empty-handed. This time she was on her phone before she even reached the car. Dad? It's not working. They're saying there's too much recent activity and... What do you mean use Jake's information? His credit is already... Fine, but I'm telling you, something is seriously wrong. They keep mentioning unusual patterns and asking questions about... Okay. Golden State Lending on Maple Street. We'll try there. I followed them to 3 more locations over the next hour and a half. Golden State Lending, Advance America, and finally a place called Cash For You that looked like it operated out of a converted gas station. Each time, Emma went in alone. Each time, she came out empty-handed and more frustrated. By 12:43 a.m., they were sitting in the Cash For You parking lot having what looked like a full-blown fight. I was close enough now to hear Emma shouting through her open window. Told you this would happen. You can't just keep opening accounts without any plan for. Not my fault Marcus decided to start paying attention. 4 fucking years, Jake. Did you think we could do this forever? That's when I saw Jake notice my car in his rearview mirror. We made eye contact through both our windshields. For about 5 seconds, neither of us moved. Then he threw the Honda in reverse and floored it straight toward me. I yanked my steering wheel hard to the right and hit the gas just as Jake's Honda slammed into the spot where my driver's side door had been 2 seconds earlier. My car jumped the curb and scraped along a fire hydrant before I managed to straighten out in the empty lot next door. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone, but I managed to keep the voice recording going as Jake backed up for another attempt. This time Emma was screaming at him to stop, hanging halfway out her window. Jake, what the fuck are you doing? You'll kill him. He's been following us. Don't you get it? He knows everything. I threw my car in reverse and got some distance between us, my heart hammering against my ribs. Jake pulled forward and just sat there, engine running, staring at me through his windshield. Even in the dim parking lot lighting, I could see how wild his eyes looked. Emma got out of the car and walked toward me with her hands up, like I was some kind of dangerous animal. Marcus, let's talk about this, okay? Turn off your car and we'll talk. Talk about what, Emma? About how you've been stealing my identity for 4 years. About the $1,680 payday loan that's due in 4 days. About how you just tried to get Jake to run me over with a car that's financed under my name. Her face crumpled. You don't understand. We never meant for it to get this bad. It started small, just a credit card to help with Mom's medical bills when she had that surgery, and then Dad lost his job for 3 months, and... What medical bills? Mom never had surgery. Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Behind her, Jake was getting out of the Honda, and he looked about 10 seconds away from a complete breakdown. The thing with her gallbladder. 2 years ago. Mom's gallbladder is fine, Emma. She went to a spa retreat 2 years ago. I have the Instagram posts. Marcus, please. Jake's voice was shaking. We're family. We can work this out. We'll pay it all back, I swear. With what money? You work at GameStop for 15 hours a week, and Emma's a part-time server. Do you have any idea how much debt you've racked up? It's over $70,000. The number hung in the air between us. I'd been tracking it obsessively, but hearing myself say it out loud made it real in a way that knocked the wind out of all 3 of us. Emma sank down onto the curb and put her head in her hands. $70,000. $73,412 as of yesterday. Not counting whatever fees are piling up on accounts you've forgotten about. Jake kicked his tire so hard I heard him curse under his breath. We can't pay that back. Even if we all got full-time jobs, we can't. That's like more than Dad makes in 2 years. That's not your problem to solve, Jake. It was never your problem to solve. You stole my entire financial future. My phone was still recording. Jake attempting vehicular assault, Emma admitting to the fraud, both of them confirming they had no ability to make restitution. The prosecutor was going to love this. What are you going to do? Emma's voice was small, defeated. I looked at my brother and sister, sitting in a sketchy parking lot at 1 a.m., having just failed to secure emergency loans from 5 different predatory lenders. They looked young suddenly. Scared. Like the kids I'd grown up with who used to build blanket forts with me and sneak me extra Halloween candy. But then I thought about the apartment rejection. The job in Portland that might disappear if my credit got any worse. The $73,000 in debt that would follow me for decades. I'm going to do what I should have done 2 years ago. When I got home at 2:17 a.m., every light in the house was on. Mom and Dad were sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere, bank statements, loan documents, credit card bills. All the evidence they thought they'd been hiding from me for 4 years, laid out like some desperate war room strategy session. Dad looked up when I walked in, and his face was gray. We need to talk. Yeah, we do. I held up my phone. Especially about Jake trying to ram my car with the Honda that's financed under my social security number. Mom's face went white. He what? Ask him yourself. He and Emma should be home any minute, assuming they didn't try to drive to Mexico. I sat down across from them and gestured at the papers. So. 4 years, huh? Not 2. Dad rubbed his face with both hands. Marcus, I know how this looks. It looks like felony identity theft. Multiple counts. Across state lines if any of these banks are headquartered outside California. I picked up a Wells Fargo statement dated 3 months after my 18th birthday. This is federal. We were going to pay it back, Mom said quickly. We had a plan. What plan? The plan where Jake works at GameStop forever. The plan where Emma tries to get payday loans at 1 a.m. I pulled out my phone and played back Jake's voice. His credit is basically maxed and now these places are starting to talk to each other. Mom started crying. Real tears, not the manipulative ones she used to get out of traffic tickets. We never meant for it to get this bad. Your father lost his job, my hours got cut, and Emma needed money for school. Emma dropped out of community college after 1 semester. 2 years ago. The crying stopped abruptly. What? She's been lying to you too. Has been since fall 2022. I saw her at the mall when she was supposed to be in her Tuesday/Thursday chemistry class. She works at that boutique in the food court, not the tutoring center. I looked at Dad. Did you know she's been taking cash advances to cover her rent and telling you guys she was still living in the dorms? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. How do you know all this? Because I've been investigating my own family for 2 years. Because I had to figure out why my credit score was in the toilet when I'd never borrowed a dime. I pulled out my folder from under my shirt where I tucked it before leaving the house. Because I documented everything. I spread the contents across the table, right on top of their papers. Photos of forged signatures. Screenshots of credit reports. Bank statements I'd intercepted and copied. The recording of Emma talking about getting another $5 grand using my information. Mom picked up a photo of her own signature next to my forged one on a Capital One application. Her hands were shaking. Marcus, where did you get this? From the mail you thought you were hiding from me. I've been getting up at 5 a.m. to check the mailbox first. For 2 years. Dad was flipping through bank statements, his face getting grayer with each page. Some of these. I don't even remember these accounts. Synchrony Bank, $4,847. You opened it in January to pay the minimum balance on the Discover card. Avant Personal Loans, $12,300. Emma used that to catch up rent and buy that designer purse. Should I keep going? The front door slammed and Jake's voice echoed down the hallway. They're probably waiting up. We need to get our story straight before. He rounded the corner and stopped dead when he saw the table. Oh, shit. Emma appeared behind him, took one look at all the evidence spread out, and sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Well. I guess we're doing this now. Now we're doing this, I confirmed. 4 years too late, but now. Jake slumped against the wall. So what happens? You call the cops and we all go to jail. That depends, I said. On whether you're going to keep lying to me. The kitchen went dead silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and Mom's occasional sniffles. What do you want to know? Dad's voice sounded like it aged 10 years in the past hour. Everything. All of it. Every account, every loan, every lie. I pulled out a legal pad I'd grabbed from my room. And then we're going to figure out if there's any way to fix this that doesn't involve me pressing charges against my entire family. Emma looked up with something like hope in her eyes. You'd consider not calling the police. I didn't say that. I said we're going to figure it out. But Emma. The lies stop tonight. All of them. Dad reached for the first bank statement. Okay. Let's start from the beginning. The beginning turned out to be even worse than I'd imagined. It was supposed to be just one card, Dad said, his voice hollow. Your mom's hours got cut at the hospital, and we were 3 months behind on the mortgage. I saw those pre-approval letters coming in your name and I thought, just once. Just to catch up. That was March 2020, Mom added. You were still a freshman. We figured we'd pay it off before you ever needed to worry about credit. I wrote down March 2020, first card, on my legal pad. Which one? Chase Freedom. $5,000 limit. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. We maxed it out in 6 weeks. On what? Mortgage payments. Car repairs. Emma needed money for. I needed money for an abortion, Emma interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. I was 19 and scared and couldn't tell you guys. The room went dead silent. Mom's face went through about 5 different emotions before settling on devastated. Emma, honey, why didn't you? Because you would have made it about yourselves. Just like you're doing with this. Emma gestured at the papers scattered across the table. But the procedure cost $800, and recovery meant missing 2 weeks of work, so I needed help with rent too. I kept writing, trying to stay clinical. So the first $5,000 went to mortgage, car repairs, and Emma's medical expenses. Then what? Jake shifted uncomfortably. Then COVID hit and Dad got laid off. For 8 months, Dad said. Not 3 months like I told you. 8 months. Unemployment barely covered groceries. So you opened more accounts. The Discover card came next, Mom said. Then Capital One. We kept thinking Dad would find work, we'd catch up, pay them all off before you graduated. But Dad didn't find work for 8 months, and when he did, it was making $18,000 less per year. Jake's voice was flat, defeated. So we fell further behind. I was scribbling furiously now, trying to track the timeline. When did you start opening accounts without emergencies? When did it become just a way to live beyond your means? The question hung in the air for a long moment. Last summer, Emma finally admitted. When I saw how easy it was, how many pre-approvals kept coming. I started thinking of it as, like an early inheritance or something. Money that would be yours someday anyway. Emma opened 7 accounts between July and December 2023, Jake added. I tried to tell her to slow down, but she said you'd never find out if you moved to Portland after graduation. 7 accounts in 6 months. I flipped through my evidence folder and found the statements. Victoria's Secret card, $2,100. Best Buy, $4,800. 3 different Visa cards totaling $19,400. What did you buy, Emma? She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Clothes. Electronics. I helped my boyfriend pay off his car loan. Stupid stuff. I know how it sounds. Your boyfriend knew. Tyler didn't know it was your information. I told him I'd gotten a settlement from a car accident. Another lie on top of lies. I added Tyler, potential accomplice, to my notes. The payday loan started in January, Mom said quietly. When we realized we couldn't even make minimum payments anymore. How many payday loans? Jake and Emma exchanged glances. For companies. Maybe 5. They compound so fast, we kept having to get new ones to pay off the old ones. Jesus Christ. I dropped my pen. Do you have any idea what the interest rates are on those things? We know, Dad said. We know how bad this is, Marcus. That's why we were trying to find a way out tonight. By getting more loans. By getting enough cash to at least make the payments until we could figure something else out. I looked around the table at my family. My parents, who'd raised me to believe in honesty and responsibility. My siblings, who I'd shared a childhood with, who I'd trusted completely until 2 years ago. Here's what I don't understand, I said slowly. The math never worked. Even if Dad hadn't gotten laid off, even if everything had gone perfectly, how were you planning to pay back tens of thousands of dollars without me ever finding out? Another long silence. We thought you'd help us, Mom whispered. Once you graduated and got your job. We thought, we're family. The words hit me like a physical blow. They'd been planning this conversation from the beginning. They'd stolen my identity with the assumption that I'd be grateful for the chance to clean up their mess. You thought I'd be okay with this? We thought you'd understand, Dad said. Someday when you have kids of your own, you'll know what it's like to do anything to keep your family afloat. I stared at him. By destroying one of your kids to save the rest of you? No one had an answer for that. I pulled out my phone and showed them my banking app. While we're being honest, let's talk about the call you made to my credit union yesterday, Mom. Her face went pale. What call? The one where you claimed there was a family emergency and tried to get access to my actual bank account. The one with my real money that I earned from my campus job. Dad's head snapped toward her. Linda, you didn't. We're 3 days away from losing the house, Robert. The mortgage company isn't going to accept we're working on it anymore. Mom's voice cracked. I thought if I could just get enough to make the payment. How much do you owe on the house? I interrupted. 14,000. We're 14,000 behind. I added it to my growing list. 14,000 on the mortgage. What else? Car payments, utilities, what else are you behind on? Jake rubbed his face. Both cars. Dad's Silverado and the Honda. We're like 3 months behind on both. The Honda that's in my name? Yeah. So when they repossess it, they're going to come after me for the remaining balance. We won't let it get repossessed, Dad said quickly. With what money, Dad? You just admitted you can't even make the mortgage payment. I was writing frantically now. What else? Credit cards you opened in your own names. We maxed those out years ago, Emma said quietly. Our credit was already shot before we started using yours. The scope of this was staggering. It wasn't just identity theft, they'd built an entire lifestyle on borrowed money, using my credit as the foundation for everything. The utilities are getting shut off Thursday, Mom added in a small voice. Power and gas. Thursday. That's tomorrow. We were hoping, if we could get approved for something tonight. I looked around the table at my family, really looked at them for the first time all evening. Dad's shirt had a stain on it and looked like he'd been wearing it for days. Mom's hair was unwashed, her makeup smeared. Jake was wearing the same GameStop polo he'd had on yesterday. Emma's designer purse was sitting on the counter, probably worth more than all their actual assets combined. Where do you think this ends? I asked quietly. Let's say I don't call the police. Let's say I somehow agree to help fix this. What's your plan? I make $47,000 a year at my new job, before taxes. Do you expect me to spend the next 15 years paying off your debt? We could consolidate everything, Mom said desperately. Get a debt management plan. Maybe declare bankruptcy. We can't declare bankruptcy on debt that's in Marcus's name, Jake pointed out. It doesn't work that way. So you have been thinking about this, I said. You've looked into solutions. Dad nodded miserably. We've been trying to figure out options for months. Everything we found either requires your cooperation or what? Emma's voice was barely audible. Or requires you to not find out until after you're established enough to handle it. Meaning we were hoping you'd discover it in like 5 years, when you're making more money and maybe married to Sarah and it would just be a family problem we all solve together. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You were going to let me find out when I tried to buy a house. When Sarah and I applied for a mortgage and discovered I had more debt than a small business. The silence told me everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Hey, you never answered about the apartment. Everything okay? I stared at her message. My girlfriend of 2 years, who I'd been planning to move in with, who had no idea that my family had orchestrated the most elaborate betrayal imaginable. I have to tell Sarah, I said. Marcus, no, Emma said quickly. Please. She doesn't need to know about this. She does if she's planning a future with me. This affects her too. Mom reached across the table like she was going to grab my phone. Let's figure out our family business first. Our family business. Mom, you've made this everyone's business. I stood up from the table, still holding my phone. I'm calling Sarah. She deserves to know why we can't get the apartment, why our entire future is compromised. Marcus, wait, Dad said, but I was already dialing. Sarah picked up on the second ring. Hey, I was getting worried. How did? Sarah, I need you to sit down. I'm about to tell you something that's going to sound insane. I walked into the living room while my family sat frozen at the kitchen table. Over the next 20 minutes, I explained everything. The identity theft, the $73,000 in debt, the confrontation in the parking lot, all of it. The silence on her end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Sarah. I'm here. Her voice sounded hollow. I'm just processing. $73,000. At minimum. There might be more I haven't found yet. And your family, they've been doing this for 4 years. Since I turned 18, apparently. Another long pause. Marcus, this explains so much. Remember when we looked at that rental house in December and they said your debt-to-income ratio was too high? I thought it was just student loans. I know. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I wasn't sure how to. Are you going to press charges? I looked back toward the kitchen, where I could hear my mom crying softly and my dad's voice in urgent whispers. I don't know yet. What do you mean you don't know? Marcus, they stole your identity. They ruined your credit. They tried to access your bank account yesterday. They're still my family. They're criminals. Sarah's voice was getting sharper. They're criminals who happen to share your DNA. It's complicated. No, it's not. It's actually very simple. They committed multiple felonies and now you have to decide if you're going to hold them accountable or let them destroy your life. I heard a car door slam outside and looked through the window. A black sedan was parked in our driveway, and a woman in a business suit was walking toward our front door. Sarah, I have to go. Someone's here. At 3 a.m. Marcus, what's? The doorbell rang before I could answer. I hung up and called toward the kitchen. Are we expecting someone? The look of panic on Dad's face when he appeared in the doorway told me we weren't. The woman at the door flashed a badge when I opened it. I'm Agent Patricia Reeves with the Federal Trade Commission. I'm looking for Marcus Chen. That's me. May I come in? I'd like to speak with you about some unusual activity on your credit reports. My stomach dropped. Activity? We've been monitoring a pattern of suspicious applications across multiple lenders in the past 72 hours. All using your social security number, but with inconsistent personal information and signatures that don't match our samples. I opened the door wider. Please, come in. Agent Reeves stepped into our living room and immediately noticed my family clustered in the kitchen doorway. Are these family members? Yes. Good. I'd like to speak with all of you. Mom looked like she was about to faint. Jake had gone completely white. Emma was gripping the doorframe so hard her knuckles were white. We've been tracking coordinated identity theft rings that target young adults, Agent Reeves continued, pulling out a tablet. Your case triggered several red flags. The sudden spike in applications, the geographic clustering of attempts, and the fact that the applicant's address doesn't match any of the contact information on file. She looked directly at my parents. In cases like this, we often find family members are involved. Dad stepped forward. Agent Reeves, we can explain. Actually, I interrupted, before anyone says anything else, I think you should know that I've been documenting everything. I went to the kitchen table and gathered up my evidence folder, bringing it back to Agent Reeves. Her eyebrows went up as she flipped through photos of forged signatures, bank statements, and printed emails. Mr. Chen, how long have you been collecting this? 2 years. But they've been using my information for 4 years. Agent Reeves looked at my family with the expression of someone who'd seen this exact scenario too many times to count. I see. And the subjects are? My parents, Robert and Linda Chen. My siblings, Jake and Emma Chen. She nodded and made notes on her tablet. Mr. Chen, I need to inform you that identity theft by family members is still identity theft under federal law. The relationships don't change the criminal nature of the acts. We understand that, I said. Do you intend to press charges? The question I'd been avoiding all night, asked by someone who could actually do something about it. I looked at my family. Mom was crying again. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years since dinner. Jake was staring at the floor. Emma was the only one meeting my eyes, and what I saw there wasn't remorse. It was anger. Marcus, Emma said quietly, you're really going to send us all to prison? Over money. Agent Reeves looked between us with professional interest. Over money was exactly how people rationalized federal crimes, apparently. Emma, it's not just money. It's my entire future. We're your family. We raised you, we loved you, You stole from me for 4 years. Agent Reeves cleared her throat. Mr. Chen, you don't have to decide tonight. But I do need to inform you that this investigation is happening regardless of your cooperation. We've already flagged the accounts, and several lenders have filed fraud reports. My family's faces went from bad to worse. What does that mean? Dad asked. It means the federal case is already building. Mr. Chen's cooperation would be helpful, but it's not required. The room went dead silent except for the sound of Mom crying. I looked at Agent Reeves. What happens next? Agent Reeves consulted her tablet. We'll need you to come in tomorrow to give a formal statement. We'll also need to coordinate with local law enforcement, since some of these accounts were opened at brick-and-mortar locations here in the county. Local law enforcement. Jake's voice cracked. Like, actual police. Identity theft is prosecuted at both federal and state levels, she explained matter-of-factly. The payday loans and check cashing attempts from tonight fall under state jurisdiction. My blood went cold. You know about tonight? Mr. Chen, several of the establishments your siblings visited have security cameras and report suspicious activity to a shared database. 3 failed applications in one night, using information for someone who wasn't present, triggered an automatic alert. Emma sank into the nearest chair. We're so screwed. Agent Reeves continued flipping through my evidence folder. Mr. Chen, this documentation is remarkably thorough. Voice recordings, photographs, financial records, you could have called us 2 years ago. I kept hoping they'd stop, I said quietly. They didn't stop. According to our preliminary investigation, the activity has actually accelerated. 14 new accounts opened in your name since January 1st. 14. I stared at my family. I only found evidence of 7. Dad looked sick. There were some store cards. Small limits. We didn't think. You opened 14 accounts in 10 weeks and didn't think I'd notice. Agent Reeves held up her hand. Mr. Chen, I need to ask you directly, have you authorized any family members to use your personal information for financial applications? No. Never. Have you received any benefit from the accounts opened in your name? I thought about Jake's Honda sitting in our driveway. The family dinners paid for with money borrowed against my future. The house we were all sitting in, kept out of foreclosure with fraudulent loans. Indirectly, I guess. I live here, I eat meals they bought with stolen money. But I never asked for any of it and I never knew about it until 2 years ago. She made more notes. The distinction matters for prosecution. You're clearly a victim, not an accomplice. What about them? I gestured toward my family. That depends on several factors. The amounts involved, their cooperation, whether full restitution is possible. She closed her tablet and looked directly at my parents. I should inform you that you have the right to legal representation. I'd recommend exercising that right. Mom looked up through her tears. Are we being arrested tonight? Not tonight. But I'd expect contact from the district attorney's office within 48 hours. My phone started buzzing with texts. Sarah, Marcus, call me back. I'm worried. What's happening? Agent Reeves handed me her card. Mr. Chen, please come to our downtown office at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Bring all your documentation and be prepared to spend several hours giving your statement. After she left, my family and I sat in the living room staring at each other. The reality of federal investigators and district attorneys had sucked all the fight out of everyone. We need lawyers, Dad said finally. With what money? Emma asked bitterly. We can't even make the mortgage payment. Jake spoke up for the first time in an hour. Marcus, I know you hate us right now, but we need to know, are you going to cooperate with them? I looked at my brother, remembering him teaching me to ride a bike, helping me with math homework, defending me from bullies at school. Then I thought about him trying to ram my car 3 hours earlier. I don't know yet. They're going to ask you to help build the case against us, Mom said quietly. That agent, she was very interested in your recordings. Because they're evidence of crimes you committed. Dad leaned forward. Marcus, if you cooperate, we'll go to prison. All of us. Is that what you want? What I want is my life back. What I want is to not owe $73,000 to people I've never met. What I want is to get an apartment with my girlfriend and start my career without this hanging over me. And if we go to prison, that helps you how exactly? Emma's anger was back, sharp and defensive. It means there are consequences. It means other families won't go through this. Other families? Emma stood up. Marcus, we're your family. We're not some abstract concept. We're the people who love you. People who love me don't steal my identity for 4 years. The argument was interrupted by headlights in the driveway. At 4:17 a.m., Sarah's car pulled up to our house. She was coming to either support me or break up with me. Maybe both. Sarah walked through our front door like she owned the place, which was impressive considering she'd never seen my family look anything other than perfectly put together. Now they looked like extras from a crime drama. I've been thinking about this for the past hour, she said, not even acknowledging my parents. And I have questions. She sat down next to me on the couch and pulled out her phone. First question, Marcus, do you remember when we applied for that joint checking account in September? The one at First National. Yeah, they said we needed to wait because of some issue with my credit history. Right. They said there was conflicting information about your employment history. She turned to face my family. What jobs has Marcus supposedly had? Dad shifted uncomfortably. What do you mean? I mean, when you filled out applications in his name, what employment information did you use? Because Marcus has worked at the campus library for 2 years. Same job, same income. But somehow his credit applications show different employment. Emma's face went pale. We might have used our jobs sometimes. To make the income look higher. So Marcus is supposedly working at GameStop, the hospital, and as a server at Denny's? Sarah's voice was getting sharper. All while being a full-time student. Jake rubbed his face. We had to make the income numbers work or we wouldn't get approved. That's employment fraud on top of identity theft, Sarah said flatly. Marcus, do you realize your credit report probably shows you working 4 jobs simultaneously in 3 different cities? My stomach dropped. I'd been so focused on the debt amounts that I hadn't thought about the employment lies. Sarah, how do you know all this? Because I went home and called my mom. She's a paralegal who specializes in financial crimes. Sarah looked around the room at my family. She's seen cases like this before. She says the employment fraud actually makes it worse because it crosses into wire fraud territory when applications go through electronic systems. Mom started crying harder. We didn't know. We just put down whatever would get approved. You didn't know that lying on federal loan applications was illegal? My phone buzzed with another payday loan reminder. Urgent. Payment of $1,680 due in 72 hours. Failure to pay may result in criminal charges. I showed it to Sarah. It gets worse. There's a payday loan due Friday that I just found out about tonight. Sarah read the message and her face went white. Marcus, payday loan companies don't mess around. If that bounces, they'll file charges immediately. File charges against who? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Against you. You're the one whose name is on the loan. Emma shot up from her chair. That's not fair. I'm the one who took out the loan. But Marcus is the one who'll get arrested when it doesn't get paid, Sarah shot back. Do you people understand what you've done to him? Dad cleared his throat. We'll figure out the payday loan. We won't let Marcus get in trouble for that. How? Sarah pulled up something on her phone. I looked up Payday Express while I was driving over here. The loan Emma took out has compounded to $1,680, and if it's not paid by 5 p.m. Friday, they automatically file a complaint with the district attorney's office. She turned her phone around to show us their website. It says right here, failure to repay loans may result in criminal prosecution for theft by deception under state law. Theft by deception. I felt like I was going to throw up. It's a felony if the amount is over $1,500, Sarah continued reading. Punishable by up to 3 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. The room went dead silent. So let me get this straight, Sarah said, looking at each member of my family in turn. You've been stealing Marcus's identity for 4 years. You've racked up over $70,000 in debt in his name. You've committed employment fraud on dozens of applications. And now you've set him up to potentially face felony charges in 72 hours. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. We didn't mean for. I don't care what you meant, Sarah snapped. I care what you did. She turned to me, and her expression softened slightly. Marcus, my mom wants to talk to you. Tonight. She says this case is going to move very fast once the federal investigation gets rolling, and you need to understand your options. What options? Victim cooperation versus family loyalty. Because apparently, you can't have both. Sarah's mom, Janet, arrived at 5:23 a.m. with a briefcase and the kind of tired determination that comes from being woken up by panicked phone calls. She took one look at my family clustered around the kitchen table and immediately started separating us. Marcus, you come with me to the living room. Everyone else stays here. Her voice had the authority of someone who'd handled dozens of these cases. No one talks to anyone until I explain what's happening legally. She spread documents across our coffee table while my family watched nervously from the kitchen doorway. First thing you need to understand, the federal investigation agent Reeves mentioned isn't optional. It's happening whether you cooperate or not. But your level of cooperation will determine whether you're treated as a victim or viewed as a potential accomplice. How could I be an accomplice? I didn't know about most of this until tonight. Janet pulled out a highlighted printout. Because you've been living in a house kept out of foreclosure with fraudulent loans. Because your brother drives a car financed under your name. Because legally, you've received material benefit from the crimes. My blood went cold. But I didn't ask for any of that. Doesn't matter. What matters is that a prosecutor could argue you should have known something was wrong and chose to ignore it. She flipped to another page. The payday loan situation makes this worse. If that payment bounces Friday, you'll be charged with theft by deception before the federal case even gets started. So what do? You have 3 options. Janet held up one finger. Option 1, full cooperation. You testify against your family, help the prosecution build their case, make it clear you were an unwilling victim. In exchange, you get immunity and assistance clearing your credit. What kind of assistance? The FTC can flag all fraudulent accounts, work with credit bureaus to remove them from your record, potentially help with victim compensation funds. She held up a second finger. Option 2, limited cooperation. You provide evidence but don't actively testify against family members. Murkier legal territory, less help with restitution. And option 3? Option 3 is refusing to cooperate and hoping your family can somehow pay back $73,000 plus penalties before this goes to trial. Janet's expression made it clear what she thought of that possibility. Marcus, I need you to understand something. Your family destroyed your credit during the most crucial years for establishing financial independence. Even if every account disappeared tomorrow, the damage to your credit history will take years to repair. From the kitchen, I could hear Emma's voice getting louder. This is insane. He's going to destroy his whole family over money that can be paid back eventually. Janet must have heard her too. May I? She gestured toward the kitchen. Emma, Janet called out, can you come here for a moment? Emma appeared in the living room doorway, arms crossed defensively. You mentioned paying the money back eventually. I'm curious about your timeline. Janet consulted her notes. You're 21 years old, you work part-time at a restaurant, and you dropped out of college. What's your current monthly income? That's not really any of your. Emma, I'm trying to help your family understand the reality of your situation. What do you make per month? Emma's voice was barely audible. Like, maybe $1,200. Sometimes more. And your monthly expenses? I don't know exactly. Rent is $800, then food and gas and stuff. Janet wrote something down. So you have maybe $200 per month in disposable income, assuming no unexpected expenses. At that rate, it would take you approximately 30 years to pay back just your portion of the debt, not counting interest and penalties. Emma's face crumpled. But we thought, as a family we could. Your family's combined legitimate income is what? Your dad makes $41,000, your mom works part-time at the hospital, Jake works 15 hours a week at GameStop. Janet's voice wasn't cruel, just factual. Even if you all devoted every penny of disposable income to this debt, you're looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. She turned back to me. Marcus, that's 15 to 20 years of your credit being destroyed while they maybe, possibly, eventually pay back money they had no right to take. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Chen, this is Detective Martinez with the County Sheriff's Office. We need to schedule an interview regarding fraudulent loan applications filed last night. Please call. I showed the message to Janet. Her expression got grimmer. That's the state investigation starting. Marcus, you're out of time for family meetings and heart-to-heart conversations. By Monday morning, you're going to be sitting in interview rooms with federal agents and county detectives. The question is whether you walk in there as a victim seeking justice or as a potential defendant trying to minimize your involvement. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see Dad slumped over the table with his head in his hands, Mom staring blankly at the wall, Jake frantically typing on his phone. My family was falling apart, and I was the one who had to decide whether to help save them or save myself. The decision was due in 72 hours. I stared at Detective Martinez's text message while Janet waited for my response. Behind me, I could hear my family having a heated whisper argument in the kitchen, but the words felt distant and muffled. There's something else, I said quietly. Something I haven't told anyone yet. Janet looked up from her notes. What kind of something? I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through my evidence folder until I found what I was looking for. A photo I'd taken 3 weeks ago of a letter that had fallen out of Dad's jacket pocket while I was doing laundry. I found this on March 2nd. It's from a collections attorney. I handed her the phone. They're threatening to garnish wages for a defaulted personal loan. $23,400 from a company called Pinnacle Financial. Janet studied the image, her expression growing darker. Marcus, this loan is dated 18 months ago. It's been in default for 8 months. I know. But here's the thing, I called Pinnacle Financial yesterday, pretending to be checking on my account status. And the loan was taken out online using my information, but the money was direct deposited into an account I've never heard of. Something called Chen Family Trust at a credit union in Nevada. Janet went very still. Nevada? Yeah. When I asked about the account details, they said it was open specifically to receive the loan funds, and it's been emptied and closed since last October. From the kitchen, Emma's voice rose above the whispers. Jake, what do you mean you can't find the passwords? What passwords? Janet was typing rapidly on her phone. Marcus, opening accounts in multiple states turns this into a much bigger federal case. And creating fake trust accounts. She looked up at me. That's organized financial fraud. That's not desperate parents trying to pay the mortgage. My stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying your family may have been more systematic about this than you realized. She stood up and walked toward the kitchen. I need to ask them about the Nevada account. I followed her, dreading what we were about to uncover. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, Janet said, her voice sharp and professional. I need you to explain the Chen Family Trust account at Silver State Credit Union in Las Vegas. The kitchen went dead silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Dad's face went gray. How did you? So you know about it, Janet continued. Who opened that account? Mom and Dad exchanged a look that lasted about 5 seconds too long. It was my idea, Emma said suddenly. The trust account. I researched how to make things look more legitimate. Jake spun around to stare at his sister. Emma, what the hell are you talking about? I found websites that explained how to set up accounts that would be harder to trace back. Multiple states, trust names that sounded official. Emma's voice was getting smaller with each word. I thought it would buy us more time before anyone figured it out. Janet was taking notes furiously. How many accounts are we talking about, Emma? I don't remember exactly. Emma. Dad's voice was sharp. Tell her. Emma looked around the kitchen at all of us, and I saw something that looked almost like relief on her face. Like she was tired of carrying secrets. 12 accounts across 4 states. Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and 1 in Colorado. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I kept track in a notes app because the passwords were getting complicated. The room started spinning around me. 12 accounts. The total across all of them is. Emma consulted her phone. As of last week, $127,400. Janet and I spoke at the same time, $127,000. My legs gave out and I sat down hard in the nearest chair. The $73,000 I'd been tracking was barely half of what they'd actually stolen. Marcus, Mom said desperately, we were going to tell you. When? My voice cracked. When exactly were you planning to mention that you'd stolen twice as much as I thought? Jake was staring at Emma like he'd never seen her before. Emma, I thought you said the out-of-state stuff was just 3 or 4 cards. It started as 3 or 4 cards. But then I realized nobody was checking across state lines, so I kept. She trailed off, finally seeming to understand how this sounded. Janet closed her notepad and looked directly at me. Marcus, this changes everything. We're not talking about a family in financial crisis anymore. We're talking about sophisticated interstate fraud. My phone buzzed with another text from Detective Martinez. Mr. Chen, we've been contacted by federal investigators in Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico regarding related cases. Please call immediately. They were already connecting the dots. How long? I asked Emma, my voice barely above a whisper. Have you been planning this? Emma looked at the floor. Since sophomore year of high school. I started researching identity theft prevention websites to figure out how people get caught. Then I researched how to not get caught. The sister I'd grown up with, who I'd helped with homework and driven to friends' houses, had been planning to steal my identity since she was 16 years old. And now federal investigators in 4 states were building a case that was going to destroy all of us. The scope of Emma's planning hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been worrying about normal teenage things, she'd been systematically researching how to steal my entire financial future. Show me the notes app, I said quietly. Emma hesitated, clutching her phone. Marcus, I don't think. Show me the fucking app, Emma. Janet held out her hand. This is evidence now. I need to see it. Emma reluctantly handed over her phone. Janet scrolled through what looked like dozens of entries, her expression getting grimmer with each swipe. Nevada account, routing 324891847, username MSC_trust, password MarcusCredit 2020, Janet read aloud. Remember to use Dad's employment info for income verification. Marcus's campus address for mailing. She kept scrolling. Arizona backup plan, if Nevada gets flagged, use P.O. Box 447, in Tucson. Already established residency with utility bill in Marcus's name. You established residency in Arizona using my name? I felt like I was going to throw up. Emma, what the hell is wrong with you? Colorado Emergency Fund, save this state for if everything else falls through. Higher credit limits, less verification required. Janet looked up from the phone. Emma, this reads like a criminal enterprise business plan. Jake was staring at his sister like she'd sprouted a second head. Emma, you never told us about half this stuff. You said you were just opening a couple backup cards. Because you would have tried to stop me. Emma's voice rose defensively. You were all content to just use the basic cards and hope for the best. I was actually trying to solve our problems long term. By creating fake residencies in 4 states. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Janet continued reading. Phase 3, once Marcus graduates and moves away, gradually increase limits and open business accounts using Chen Family Trust as collateral. Estimated timeline, could sustain family expenses for 8 to 10 years if managed properly. The room went dead silent. 8 to 10 years, I repeated slowly. You were planning to steal from me for 8 to 10 years. Emma's face was flushed red, but her voice was defiant. I was planning to take care of our family. Do you have any idea what it's like watching Dad work 2 jobs just to stay behind on bills? Watching Mom cry over mortgage payments. So your solution was to destroy my life? Your life would have been fine. You'd be making good money in Portland, you'd never have to know about the massive debt I discovered when I tried to buy a house. When Sarah and I applied for a mortgage and found out I owed $127,000 to companies I'd never heard of. Janet held up her hand. There's more. Business account applications ready for submission, Marcus Chin LLC, Marcus Chin Consulting, Chin Investment Trust. All documents prepared, just waiting for right timing. My blood went cold. Business accounts. Emma was preparing to open fraudulent business accounts in your name, Janet explained. That's a whole different category of federal crime. Detective Martinez's card was burning a hole in my pocket. The federal agents expected me in their office in 4 hours. And now I was learning that my sister had built an interstate criminal operation using my identity as the foundation. My phone rang. Sarah's name on the screen. I have to take this. I walked onto the back porch and answered. Sarah, I can't really talk right now. Marcus, my mom just got a call from the FTC. They want to interview me too. What? Why would they want to interview you? Because apparently my name is listed as a reference on 3 of the loan applications. Someone used our relationship to make you look more financially stable. I closed my eyes. Sarah, I swear I had no idea. I know you didn't. But Marcus, they're asking me questions about our finances, our future plans, whether I knew about your debt. They think I might be involved somehow. Through the porch window, I could see Emma still arguing with Janet while my parents sat in stunned silence. Sarah, there's more. Emma's been planning this since high school. We're looking at $127,000 across multiple states. They've been setting up fake businesses, false residencies, everything. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Marcus? Her voice was very quiet. I need you to listen to me carefully. My mom says you need to make a decision right now, before you walk into that federal building this morning. What kind of decision? Whether you're going to save your family or save yourself. Because according to the agents she's talked to, you can't do both anymore. The federal building felt like a fortress as I walked up its concrete steps at 9:47 a.m., carrying my folder of evidence and Sarah's final words, whatever you decide, I'll support you. But you can't set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Agent Reeves was waiting with Detective Martinez and a prosecutor named David Kim. They spread my evidence across a conference table like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. Mr. Chen, based on what we've discovered overnight, your sister Emma orchestrated a sophisticated interstate fraud operation using your identity, Agent Reeves began. 12 accounts, 4 states, $127,400 in fraudulent debt. This is one of the most extensive family-based identity theft cases we've seen. I stared at the financial documents scattered across the table. What happens to them? That depends partly on your cooperation, Prosecutor Kim said. Full cooperation means we can offer your family plea agreements, probably 18 to 24 months in federal prison, plus full restitution. Without your testimony, we're looking at trial and potentially 5 to 10 years each. Detective Martinez leaned forward. Marcus, we found something else. That payday loan due tomorrow. Emma took out 3 more yesterday after you followed them. All in your name. She's actively making this worse while federal agents are investigating. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, please don't do this to us. We're family. I turned the phone face down and looked at Agent Reeves. If I cooperate fully, what happens to my credit? Complete restoration. Every fraudulent account removed, credit score rebuilt from scratch, victim compensation fund access. She slid a document across the table. But we need your testimony to make the strongest case. I thought about Emma's Notes app, her 8 to 10 year plan to systematically destroy my financial future. I thought about Jake trying to ram my car. I thought about Mom attempting to access my bank account while claiming family emergency. Then I thought about Sarah, waiting at her apartment to hear whether we'd have a future together. I'll cooperate fully, I said. I'll testify against all of them. The words felt like jumping off a cliff, but also like finally being able to breathe. 6 months later, I was signing a lease for an apartment in Portland when my phone rang. It was Dad, calling from federal prison, ***. Marcus, I just wanted you to know, we don't blame you. Emma's been getting counseling, and she finally understands what she did to you. What we all did. I looked out at the view Sarah and I would share, mountains in the distance, a future that finally belonged to us. My credit score was 720 and climbing. The victim compensation fund had covered my moving expenses and security deposit. Dad, I forgive you. But I can't trust you. Not anymore. I know. Maybe someday, when we've served our time and made real restitution, we can try to rebuild something. After I hung up, Sarah handed me a box of our things to unpack. Any regrets? She asked. I thought about the family dinners I'd miss, the birthdays I'd spend alone, the relationships that might never heal. Then I thought about the $127,400 in debt that no longer existed, the job I was starting Monday, the life I almost lost. No, I said, opening the box labeled Our Fresh Start. No regrets. Sometimes protecting yourself means everything changes. But sometimes, everything needed to change anyway.